David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. This was a fight I was not expecting to see this year, but it's going to be a good one, a quality fight. Both men are trying to get that fight with Canelo Alvarez for the possibility of becoming the undisputed champion in the division. This is Boo Boo Andrade's second fight at 168, and he's facing one of the tops in the division. He sees something that he believes he can expose against David Benavidez. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. You know how we do. Let's get into it. Let's start with David Benavidez. 27 wins, no losses, 23 wins by way of knockout. Now, we've covered Benavidez a few times on the channel already, where we touch on the backstory a bit and his journey to where he is now. And of course, many of you have been watching David Benavidez over the years, so you know what he is about. You know what he can do inside of the ring, right? You know, the offensive weaponry is crazy, right? He can do almost any type of shot in the ring with hand speed, with quickness, with placement, with accuracy. The man is just vicious from an offensive standpoint. And for as big as he is, the speed that he can throw some of these shots is actually really, really impressive. One thing we know about David Benavidez is when he is comfortable, when his momentum is on the upward swing, you know he's not afraid to let the hands fly. And he can't wait for the opportunity to present itself so he can show you, hey, I'm a different beast in here. You might have seen me in fights, but until you're in the ring with me, I actually move a little bit quicker than you thought. He's a very good counter puncher, and he's a punishing puncher. Punish his opponents inside of the ring. And he's also a guy to me that gets stronger as the fight goes on, right? Not to mention the confidence begins to gain and grow a little bit more. What I like about David Benavidez and like watching him, man, is just how he puts his punches together. Yeah, there are times when he does headhunt, but he does not neglect the body, the ribs. He doesn't neglect all parts of the body. He is going to find the open target and make that open target the center of his attack and his approach. Now, some fighters, just like any sports, are exceptions to the rule. For as quick as his hands are, he doesn't have the best footwork. He's a little flat-footed. Sometimes he hangs on the ropes for longer than he needs to be. He just hangs on him on purpose and lets his opponents throw off on him so he can probably counter and land better shots. It's not what your trainer would advise you to do. But again, sometimes there are exceptions to the rules, and he throws punches sometimes without worrying about what his opponent can do, right? So kind of that being defensively irresponsible, right? Where he can protect himself, but he sometimes chooses not to. So he doesn't mind going shot for shot. He doesn't mind that. When he fought Ronald Gaval for the first time, man, he got caught with a counter hook that ended him being on the canvas. For the first time in his career, he was dropped, right? And he would go on to win the fight, dominate the rematch, but he's going to be there to get hit. He's not this great defensive fighter. He is pretty good, but he's not one of the great defensive fighters in the sport today. And I thought Gaval did a very good job of changing his approach in the second fight, how he was on offense, right? You can't just come forward against David Benavidez. You're going to have to slip. You're going to have to move. You're going to have to give different angles, different looks to kind of throw him off and make him always anticipating what you're trying to do. Try and staying one step ahead of him as best as you can. Gaval did that in both times in different rounds and different stages of the first fight and the rematch, and he made it tough for David Benavidez at times. Benavidez in the second fight, well, both fights, towards the end of the fight, man, he was kind of tiring out a little bit going into those championship rounds. And Gaval, even though he did not get the win, he still has some good moments against David Benavidez that I'm sure Boo Boo Andrade and his team have watched and have taken into their game plan. And Andre does have the skill and athleticism and footwork to make things challenging for David Benavidez. He's a good boxer, right? And he can do some good work on the outside. But to keep that up for 12 rounds, that is the question that will be answered on fight night. And David Benavidez's most recent fight, he fought Caleb Plant. Before that fight, man, the build up to that fight, you kind of saw how serious Benavidez was taking this fight, right? You saw it from his physical body, from the shape that he was in, man. Sometimes David Benavidez comes in to fight, right? And he doesn't seem like he's in the best physical shape. You don't lack the skills. You don't doubt none of that. But you just start to say, man, if you don't take care of your body every single day when you are in camp, it is going to show inside of the ring, which is why sometimes it looked like he was tiring out going into the championship rounds of the fight. But in this fight leading up to it, man, he looked great shape. And you could see he was taking that nutrition part of things very seriously. Now I'm just speculating, but from my experience in the professional settings, man, you cannot take any shortcuts. You hear it, but until you get into camp and until you get into training and until you get into a position where it is going to be the thing that helps you or holds you back a little bit, man. I used to take my nutrition extremely seriously, and I was trying to run 100 meters in under 10 seconds, and I never took any type of my nutrition for granted. And he's trying to fight 12 rounds, 3 minutes. Nutrition got to be on point. The body has got to be right. And for that fight, David Benavidez's body and shape and mind was right for that fight, and it showed inside of the ring. We know Caleb Plant is a very good boxer. He moves well in the ring. He's technically sound. He's going to make it tough for him. He's a smart thinker in the ring. He's confident in his approach, and man, he just does things with ease. You know, Sweet Hands knows what he's doing, and not to mention he fights with a lot of heart, determination, and will. And in the early half of the fight, man, Plant was outboxing David Benavidez, staying on the outside, trying to counter, using his jab, making sure he wasn't staying in the same spot, right? Making sure he was moving and not staying on the ropes where David Benavidez could catch him and tee off of him. Benavidez, though, man, I was very impressed by how he controlled his energy and his output that fight. He took his time. He kept the pressure. Even if he wasn't landing shots, man, that's the thing about pressure fighters. Even when they aren't necessarily cutting off the ring as best as they can, but they're coming forward and they're making their opponent work to get out of the way, man, that weighs on you. That does take its toll. Trying to evade someone who you know wants to take your head off, you have to be psychologically locked in to make sure that you aren't nowhere where this man is going to be, where he can have the upper hand. And I thought Caleb Plant, for the most part, in the first half, did a very good job of doing just that. He was making David Benavidez miss a whole lot, right? Plant was throwing shots too, but then Benavidez started to close the gap, and the shots that were missing at the first half of the fight was starting to connect in the second half of the fight, just a little bigger, and the shots started to add up. The body shots started to add up. The head shots started to add up, and it started to get more physical, and Benavidez started to take over from the ninth round and beyond. Benavidez was looping some shots in that I had not seen him do before. He waited until the right time, and he just broke down Caleb Plant with body work, the physicality, and the counter punches and the combinations. Man, honestly, I was very impressed by what I saw from David Benavidez that fight. It was his best performance to date for me against a guy who was a top of the division, a guy who was a champion as well at one point in his career. And it showed that he's more than just this come forward brawler type of guy, that he can be tactical, he can be patient and get the same result. And that is to get the win. Caleb Plant, man, even in his defeat, to me, is still a guy whose stock rose. He's never going to back down from a fight. A lot of respect for Caleb Plant. Andrade is going to need to come in with that type of mentality, right? Because Benavidez is a whole lot to deal with for 12 rounds. But let's talk about his opponent, Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade. 32 wins, no losses, 19 wins by way of knockout. He's got the skill and the stance to make this a tough night for David Benavidez. He's athletic, he's sharp, and he can lull you into shots if you aren't careful. Andrade's looping overhand left is a shot that he's dropped opponents with, backed opponents up with, and a shot that he likes to use. If you aren't careful, David Benavidez could get caught with that shot. I think Andrade moves well on the inside. I think Andrade moves very well inside the ring, and he's gotten better over the years, man. Movement is going to be the thing that he's going to have to make a priority, right? He's going to have to be careful and make things very calculated, as he usually is. Andrade is a very smart guy inside of the ring. One of the fights that I liked was when he fought, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly, Maro Tarsian, I believe it was, back in 2013, where he won the WBO title by split decision. But it was a fight where it was a little different territory for Andrade because he was dropped in that fight. Maratusian was blocking a bunch of those shots early, right? But he did not let Andrade get comfortable in the first round. He cut Andrade coming in and dropped him. And that was the first time that he touched the canvas in his professional career. Correct me if I'm wrong in that, but man, even though it was very early in the fight, I think it was in the first round, it was still a 10-8 round, not for Andrade, but for his opponent. And so when you've been dropped before, man, you've never been in that type of territory before, you got to see how you're going to respond. Are you going to try to be desperate and get everything back in the next round? Or are you going to be mature enough to know, okay, this is a long fight. I don't have to do more than what I need to do each and every single round. Let's attack round 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's generate momentum and get back into it. And that's exactly what he did in that fight. And it was a good response because he's going to need to be careful of that, because there are moments when he's going to have to withstand some of that storm and that pressure of David Benavidez. What if he gets clipped and dropped again? It's hard to respond if he's never been there, but he's been there before and he's responded very well. Andrade often starts off fast. He's efficient and effective early, but then he starts to fade a little bit, and he's done it a few times. Most recently, when he fought Liam Williams a few years back, he was also in another close fight against Jack Colquet, where some people thought he lost that fight. I thought Andrade won the fight clearly, but some people thought he lost that fight, and I can understand why many people might think that. Those fights were at 154, 160, and so forth, but this is at 168. So this is a different version of Andrade. So we have to talk about him at 168 because we've got a little bit of a preview of what he is like and how he handles the weight. He fought Damon Nicholson this year. Damon is a big, strong opponent who's got 6 losses, but he's only been stopped now twice to date. So it was going to be a nice little introduction for Andrade into the division. And for the most part, I thought he did very well. Apart from the one shot that looked like Nicholson landed a body shot and was dropped, I thought Andrade did what Andrade does, man. You know he's going to box. You know he's going to start quick. You know he's going to be strategical. And you know he's going to make sure that he doesn't waste what he is doing. He's not going to waste the shots. He's not going to waste the placement, not going to waste a whole lot of movement. He is going to make sure he takes what's given to him. And if he can get the stoppage, he's going to get the stoppage. He wasn't able to get the stoppage, but it was still him dominating the fight against Nicholson. Andrade is a 2-division champion, so he's not someone to be taken lightly. I don't think Benavidez is going to do that, but Andrade can be a problem. So who wins? Andrade, as I said at the beginning, he can make this a tough fight. I've seen a lot of back and forth, people saying, man, this is going to be a wash. Like most, it could be a wash, right? Obviously, in boxing, we never know how things can go. Andrade is very skillful, and he can make this very tough for David Benavidez. He's smart, strategic fighter, and he's a southpaw. We haven't seen Benavidez against too many southpaws. You know, southpaws are tricky, right? We know Benavidez doesn't have the best footwork, and Andrade has very good footwork. I'm expecting Andrade to win the early half of this fight, kind of similar to what Caleb Plant was able to do. But it's the second half of the fight that I'm just not sure how it's going to play out for him. We know Benavidez comes on late with letting the hands go, right? And if his conditioning is anything like it was when he fought Caleb Plant, man, that is going to be a problem for Demetrius Andrade. I'm also not sure what Andrade's chin is really like just yet. I know Liam Williams landed a right hand on him that hurt him. Liam Williams is no David Benavidez. But at the same time, you cannot ignore the skill that Andrade has to make this a tough fight and what he can do from an athletic standpoint. So it's going to make things very interesting, man. I think if Benavidez comes in the type of physical shape, again, as I said, it's going to be a problem. I also think both men know what's at stake here. The loser probably is not going to fight Canelo next, but the winner probably is going to get that spot at some point, man. I think David Benavidez knows that at hand. He's had to prove himself over these years, and he's so close. And I'm sure he's going to be fighting with that added notion to it to try to make a statement. I like David Benavidez in this fight. I think this fight plays out similar like how it did against Caleb Plant, as I just said. Andrade early, Benavidez comes on late. I think there's going to be some times where Benavidez looks like he's going to be able to hurt Andrade, maybe even wobble him. But then I think Andrade recovers and is able to go the full distance. I think David Benavidez wins this fight by decision. What are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning this one? Let me know in the comment section below. If you would like to support the channel, if you're enjoying the content, getting something from it, there's a couple ways that you could support the channel. You can like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, engage in the community. If you would like support by way of donation, couple ways you can do that. My Cash App handle is on screen, PayPal in the description. Also, I hope that you consider becoming a member. We got 2 different tiers, 2 different options. Your support is greatly appreciated. Any form that you are able to, it's always love. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video this long, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.